I think many of us can relate to Moses. Like, we're desperate for deliverance. Like, we may be feeling some sort of oppression or some difficult circumstances concerning anxiety or concerning depression or concerning a divorce or losing a best friend or being in a breakup or dealing with a health crisis. There's this long list we have of things that we need deliverance for, that we're aching to see deliverance for. And the truth is that we are not going to find deliverance by looking in ourselves. God has worked deliverance for us. Like, our deliverance is finished. We can accept that deliverance from sin. We can accept that deliverance from Jesus. And the thing is, we're not just delivered from sin in Jesus. Like, we are delivered unto promises in Jesus. We're delivered unto his joy, unto his peace, unto his gladness, unto a hope, unto a future, unto heaven. We are delivered, and it is final because of Jesus. All right, hi, welcome to High School Sunday. I honestly don't know how to follow that worship. That was amazing. Quick shout out to Aria. Did y'all see how she hummed at the very beginning? I don't know. Sorry, that just blew my mind. You're outstanding. But anyway, if we have not met yet, my name is Emily. I am a 9th grade girls leader. I'm also a resident here at Fairhaven, so I work in the outreach department. And I'm actually approaching the last month of my residency. So I'm very sad to leave soon, but I'm really excited for this opportunity to come and share with you guys tonight. So as you may know, we have started a journey of going through the Bible. It's going to take a few years. We are 4 months in now, and we are approaching the second of 66 books in the Bible. So yeah, this is going to be a several-year journey. And we took a few weeks to break and talk about the resurrection and Easter and all that means for us. And so now we're jumping back in. So we are going to discuss tonight the story of Moses. And I want to just go ahead and start with some context before I get into some of our main themes. But you may have heard that, if you've been here a few weeks, we talked about the beginning of creation. We talked about Noah and the flood, and then we got to Joseph. And so Joseph ended up moving from the area where the Israelites were living, and he moved into Egypt as a foreigner. And then his family moved with him, so he began living in Egypt, and eventually as their people group started growing and spreading, they became oppressed by those in Egypt. So that is key information before we start talking about Moses a bit tonight. But if you could you go to the next slide that has our main theme? Okay, so our theme tonight, our main topic, as we explore the story of Moses, is although God is holy, he draws us into his presence. So I took a while to pray about tonight, prep, get ready, and I thought, yeah, we need to define holy, right? That's an important word. That's part of our main theme. So God, can you define holiness for me? This is what I was praying. Can you remind me of a time I've encountered your holiness? And God brought to mind this moment that I was in Israel. So I was on a study abroad trip. I was with my class, and we were visiting different sites around Israel that are important to the Bible and, these stories we know. And one thing that happens in Israel is when there's an important spot, where Jesus was born in Bethlehem, or the hill they think he was crucified on, they don't just leave it as a cave or a hill and really natural. They build a giant church over it, like a cathedral. So we go into this cathedral, and we go down to the basement and then to a second basement that was underneath, and it was kind of giving Indiana Jones. It was really rocky, and there was ruins everywhere inside. It was crazy. But this was the place that they considered to be where Jesus was held before his trial, before his crucifixion. And so there's these big pits in the ground, and that's where they would hold prisoners before they went on trial. And our class, we went down into one of the pits where they believe it was the actual pit that he was held in. And suddenly, as I'm in this pit, I feel the presence of God so strongly. And I just felt this need to take off my shoes. I just felt like, I'd been walking around all day. It was all dirty, and I just was not postured the right way to respect this place where Jesus was held before his crucifixion. And I bring that up, okay, because God's holiness and counting his holiness doesn't require we go to Israel. It doesn't require, all these special experiences. We can encounter it here tonight. But I want to just talk more about this issue of holiness. And okay, let me find my notes again. So holy, this is a difficult word to define, because really it points to the fact that God is different than us. He's separate, he's other than. It points to his uniqueness and the fact that he's set apart. It's kind of difficult for us to wrap our brains around what it means that God is holy, because we live in these bodies and we're finite and we have to obey the laws of physics and time and space and all these things. But God is holy, and so he's above time and he's above space. He actually created them. And we only experience his holiness, like I did in Israel, just because he is holy first. We separate unto God's holiness. And so to help us wrestle with this idea of holiness, I want us to just jump right into scripture. And as I read our verses for tonight, please pay attention to more examples of where you see God's holiness. So let's get started. Okay, this is from Exodus 3, and I'm starting in verse 2. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see it. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses replied. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. So did you kind of see some instances of God's holiness in that? Kind of? Okay, I'm going to tell another story. And we're going to use our imaginations for this story. And this is going to help us compare God's holiness to maybe our unholiness or our normalcy. So imagine yourself, in 1500 BC, so that's 1500 years before Christ came. This is when Moses is alive. You're in the desert. Some of y'all probably still have on pajama pants and Crocs. I don't know. You're just there in the desert, and suddenly you catch a bush on fire. And this bush is just burning, and it's about to burn to the ground. And suddenly you see a man, and he's off, and he's, with some sheep. And you say, hey, how are you? He comes over, and he's like, hey, I see you caught this bush on fire. I hope you know it's going to burn to the ground in 5 seconds because we're in the desert, and it's really dry. And you say, okay, thank you, Mr. Desert Expert. What's your name? He says, my name is Moses. And you're like, okay, nice to meet you, Moses. And he's like, nice to meet you. I got to go tend to my sheep. So enjoy your pile of bush ashes. I like your Crocs. Goodbye. Okay. So that's what would happen if Moses encountered us in the desert, right? It'd be normal. It would not be written in the Bible. It would not be that important. Okay, we do not have God's holiness, right, without him. So that's right, that's a very normal example. So let's look back at this passage and let's compare it to where what happens when Moses encounters God in the desert. So first we see that the bush is on fire and it's not burning. Okay, if we lit that bush on fire, it'd burn to the ground. But God lights this bush on fire. Like, he defies all laws of science and he keeps this thing from burning to the ground. See, fire is often used in the Bible to describe God's holiness. God is light. We read that in the New Testament. And fire illuminates darkness. God is pure. And fire is used to refine materials and remove impurities. God is separate. You know, we can't just touch fire. We have to have like boundaries with the fire because of its intensity. So next thing where we see God's holiness, God calls Moses by name. Like, we would just think he was a stranger walking in the desert, but God knows Moses. He knitted Moses in his mother's womb. If you know the story, you know that God protected Moses in a basket floating down the river to safety. God saw Moses grow up. God knew all of Moses's limits and temptations and fears and worries, and yet still called him in the desert. And then what else? So Moses, when he gets to the fire, he doesn't just get to hang out. It's not just a normal fire. God says, no, take off your shoes, for this is holy ground, right? So God needed or asked Moses to reposture himself in humility so that he could experience this holy moment. And then what else? So God continues, he reveals himself to Moses by like name dropping the most important people in his heritage, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and God puts himself above those people. Like, these are the most important people of their faith. And God says, no, I'm their father. Like, I created them. Okay? And then not only does God reveal that he is creator, he says, like, I have heard the distress of all your people. Like, I'm above your circumstances too. I'm above your suffering. I know what you're going through. And then this last final promise that's key to God's holiness here, God says that he has a plan of deliverance for them. See, God is in control. He's holy. He's separate. He's above our circumstances. And yet he invites us into his presence. So let's keep moving on. So we're in verse 9 now. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me. That's God talking. And I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people, Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses protested to God. Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? God answered, I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you've brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. But Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent you. So we see as the story continues, God affirms for Moses this plan of deliverance and reveals that there's a calling on Moses' life to trust God and to participate in leading his people out of deliverance. But Moses, he's like us, right? Like, he questions this. He's like, God, like, who am I to do this? I don't think I can do this. Like, I think Moses had like a stuttering problem. Like, he was like, I actually just don't think I'm physically capable to participate in this. And so God says, yeah, you're right. Like, you can't. You're actually really weak, and that's a good point. So I guess I can't deliver you. I'm just going to let you like wallow in your self-pity and leave the people under oppression for eternity. Yeah, no, God doesn't say that. God says, I am who I am. Like, he just disregards what Moses says about who he is and what he can't or can't do. And God says, look at who I am. I am who I am. I am eternal. I am in control. I am sovereign. I am the reason that everything in the world exists. Like, that's what God's pointing at when he says, I am who I am. I am just above. I am separate. I'm above these circumstances and this oppression. So I think just to wrap up here, right, to kind of see where we fit into this story, I think many of us can relate to Moses, right? Like, we're desperate for deliverance. Like, we may be feeling some sort of oppression or some difficult circumstances concerning anxiety or concerning depression or concerning a divorce or losing a best friend or being in a breakup or dealing with a health crisis. There's this long list we have of things that we need deliverance for, that we're aching to see deliverance for. And the truth is that we are not going to find deliverance by looking in ourselves. We're not going to find it by evaluating our abilities and seeing if we can conjure up something in ourselves to make our deliverance a reality. Like what God calls Moses to do in this story, God says, "Look at me. I am who I am." You see, God has worked deliverance for us. Like, this is what we just celebrated in Easter. Like, our deliverance is finished. Like, we can accept that deliverance from sin. We can accept that deliverance from Jesus. And the thing is, we're not just delivered from sin in Jesus. Like, we are delivered unto promises in Jesus. We're delivered unto his joy, unto his peace, unto his gladness, unto a hope, unto a future, unto heaven. We are delivered, and it is final because of Jesus. But just like Moses experienced, there's times that we need to take off our shoes. We need to lay something aside so that we can step into God's presence and accept the things that he has achieved for us on the cross. And so I just want everyone to maybe just take a second and consider, like, what is the thing God's calling you to take off? Like, sure, there could be a moment in the future you feel like you need to take your shoes off in a holy space. That might happen. I'm not saying it could not happen, but more so every day, like, there are things that we need to lay aside to posture ourselves humbly before God to receive his deliverance. That might be our screen time. That might be a lie we believe about God or a lie we believe about ourselves. It might be a relationship that's really holding us back from living into promises. It might be, having a schedule that's too busy. It might be just living in this fear and this anxiety. But God has delivered us, and that deliverance is final. And so, friends, we serve a holy God. A God who is separate, a God who is sovereign, who is all-knowing, who is powerful, yet he draws us into his presence. So let us be quick to throw off everything that keeps us from his presence and live in the faith that he has accomplished our deliverance. So I'm going to pray, but I encourage you in the few seconds I take before I start praying to consider what it is you're seeking deliverance for and what it is God may be asking you to lay aside so you can continue walking in the freedom that's been achieved for us. All right, let's pray. God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this group of students that you've brought in this room. God, it's no surprise to you that each and every single one of them is here. Lord, you know them fully. You know the aches of their hearts. You know the desires of their hearts. You know the prayers that they've prayed and the ones that they may even be scared to pray. And God, my prayer tonight is that you just bring us more into the freedom and the faith that you have delivered us and that it's final. God, we know that you're in control. So as our anxieties stir up and as our fears stir up, I pray that you show us how to turn our eyes to you and rely on your strength. God, we thank you for being our deliverer. And Lord, I just praise you for being a good God. It's in your name I pray. Amen.